Hi! Today we will explain the storyline of a movie titled A Sacrifice, released in 2024. Okay, let's get right to the story. Ben Monroe, a social psychologist, is gathering material for his latest book on collective consciousness. He finds an interesting source, a teenage girl who believes that civilization is coming to an end. The next day, Ben and his colleague, Max, investigate a crime scene where a group of people ended their lives together one by one. Strangely, there were small white shells in their mouths. The group also left a note saying that what they did was a sacrifice. Nina, a criminal profiler, admits that she does not know what group did this. Ben admits that he came as part of research for his book. He's not used to seeing dead bodies, so he decides to step outside for some fresh air and read a text message from his daughter Mazzy, who has arrived in Germany to continue her studies for a semester. Ben considers Mazzy's arrival a punishment for her poor grades last semester. Conversely, Mazzy considers it a pleasant punishment. On the way to Ben's house, Mazzy met a young man named Martin on the train. They hit it off immediately and exchanged phone numbers. When it was already dark, Mazzy arrived at Ben's house. They chatted for a while and talked about Mazzy's protective mother. From this, Ben learned that his ex-wife already had a new lover. Ben seemed sad to hear this, but Mazzy tried to cheer him up. After that, they had dinner together at a restaurant while discussing the progress of Ben's book. Ben said that the topic of his book this time was about the power of group minds. He then recounted that a few days ago he interviewed a reclusive girl who did not allow Ben to enter her apartment to talk directly. The interview took place outside the girl's apartment door. According to Ben and Mazzy, this girl was like a group of young people in Japan who behaved similarly, living their lives locked up in their homes for long periods of time. They believed that one day a predator would end their lives in a terrible way. The next day, Mazzy's studies began. She breezed through chemistry class and got to know another student named Larissa. That day, Martin sent her a text saying he wanted to hang out with Mazzy. They agreed to meet on Tuesday. At the same time, Larissa also invited her to a party that night. However, politely, Mazzy declined the invitation because Ben would definitely forbid it. On the other hand, Martin also went about his day as usual. That day, he attended a community event with his close friend, Lotta. The community leader, Hilma, reminded all members to work together to protect Mother Earth from the damage caused by human greed. The meeting ended with a group meditation. Ben was still busy investigating the group murder case. After teaching, Ben met Nina and Max again. Max believed that this case would not be repeated, but Nina and her team disagreed. Nina said that the owner of the house was a naturopathic doctor, which is a therapy or treatment using natural ingredients. Ben thought that it was just a cover to hide something evil. Like other cult communities that promise heavenly rewards, they must find out what the appeal of this community is. Max added that a sense of belonging could be a strong attraction. For Nina, that factor sounded too simple. She was sure there was something bigger motivating them. Returning from the gathering, Martin's grandmother suddenly passed away. Martin had been living with his loving grandmother in an apartment. Martin could only sob as he looked at his grandmother lying lifeless. To heal his grief, Martin sought emotional support from the Hilma community. From the moment he joined, Hilma made Martin believe that happiness does not come from just one person, but from the environment or community. Hilma taught Martin that existence is merely a continuous cycle of death and rebirth. That evening, Ben invited Mazzy to have dinner at Max and his wife Sophie's house. It turned out that Max had also invited Nina. They chatted in the living room, while Elsa, Max, and Sophie's daughter invited Mazzy to chat in her room. Nina told them about her origins, which Ben found interesting. Without having to say it outright, Sophie and Max understood that they liked each other. The gathering ended abruptly when Max and Nina received a call about work. The police found the body of a young woman in the woods by the lake, whose identity was unknown. Forensic officers found several rocks of various sizes in the girl's clothes. Nina suspected that this was a similar case to the group's, but she did not find any shells in the corpse's mouth. Nina's colleague said that this was the second suicide case in a week. Feeling that it was unrelated to the case they were investigating, Nina asked Max to leave the scene. Tuesday arrived, and Martin and Mazzy met at a cafe to chat more intimately. Mazzy told him that her parents had divorced last year. Meanwhile, Martin now lives alone since his parents died in an accident and his grandmother recently passed away. Martin then said that he now works for an environmental nonprofit organization. According to him, doing something for the environment has completely changed his perspective. Martin's reading material was also related to the theme of the sustainability of the universe. He had just finished reading a book about how to prevent mass extinction. This theme appealed to Mazzy, who had her own views on preventing population explosion by not having children. Martin was impressed by Mazzy. He said his community needed people who shared Mazzy's views. To that end, he invited Mazzy to Martin's group and gave her a brochure. Of course, Mazzy was happy to accept the offer. That afternoon, Nina invited Ben to have coffee with her at her office while discussing developments in the naturopathic doctor's case. Nina said that the doctor was very concerned about environmental degradation caused by social inequality. Ben immediately concluded that the doctor and his group viewed the action as a revolutionary decision. Not without reason, this doctor had established a free healing center in a low-income neighborhood. He was already considered a savior by the local residents. Ben had also done his own research. He analyzed that the doctor had gradually become paranoid, then began preaching about the end of times and the collapse of the environmental system. Nina added that the doctor believed what his group was doing was for the greater good. To Ben, it was manipulative, but Nina saw it from a different perspective. According to her, the members were willingly sacrificing themselves because they had found meaning in life. A few days later, Mazzy came to Hilma's community gathering with Martin. They were preparing for a demonstration. Martin introduced Mazzy to Hilma, who immediately shared the group's vision and mission to save the Earth. Not only that, Hilma also gave Mazzy a necklace with a shell pendant. After that, they all lay down while listening to Hilma's motivational sermon. Since Mazzy did not understand German, Martin translated everything Hilma said. Mazzy listened intently, becoming more and more enamored with Martin. That night, Mazzy asked Ben for permission to go to the party with Larissa. However, she was actually going with Martin. Mazzy then remembered Nina, whom she had seen briefly at Max's house a few days ago. Mazzy suspected that her father was dating Nina. Ben claimed that their relationship was not serious, just friends. Ben would not hide it from Mazzy if he had a girlfriend. However, he still loved Mazzy's mother. The next day, Mazzy went on a date with Martin by the lake. They ate mushrooms that made Mazzy hallucinate and relax. She imagined herself drowning in the lake with Lotta, whom she didn't know at the time. After returning home, Mazzy spent her time watching Hilma's sermon videos on the internet until she fell asleep. That night, Ben went out drinking with Nina. Here, their acquaintance became more intense, as Ben recounted his traumatic past when Mazzy was a child. Ben still felt guilty for not being able to save Mazzy in time, while his ex-wife was the hero. Nina offered him words of comfort as emotional support for Ben. Meanwhile, Mazzy suddenly woke up. She read the note Ben had left for her, then decided to go for a walk to get some fresh air. Unexpectedly, she saw her father being intimate with Nina. This made Mazzy very upset. The next morning, she scolded her father for leaving without saying goodbye. She was upset that Ben hadn't woken her up. However, she didn't mention what she had seen the night before. Mazzy went out to calm herself down. She claimed she was going to play with Elsa at Max's house. However, halfway there, she changed her mind. Mazzy went to look for Martin at the Hilma Community Center. However, Martin was not there. Mazzy only saw Hilma meditating alone. Hilma welcomed Mazzy with open arms, allowing Mazzy to freely confide in Hilma about her father's behavior. However, Mazzy had harbored deep disappointment since her parents' divorce. She felt that she was the cause of the separation. Mazzy said that she had drowned at the beach, even though Ben was watching her. However, Ben just stood there, not saving Mazzy. Because of that, Mazzy's parents fought until they decided to divorce. Hilma encouraged Mazzy to separate herself from her parents in order to let go of her guilt and rely more on herself. After the meeting, Mazzy stopped by Elsa's house. She told Elsa what Hilma had suggested to her, and Elsa was influenced by Hilma's advice. After that, Mazzy invited Elsa to go to a party with her. However, Elsa refused because she was afraid of her father. Moreover, Max had been emotional lately because He had not been able to solve the case of the girl's suicide by the lake. On the other hand, Ben stopped by Nina's apartment to bring her the rough draft of his new book because he wanted to hear her opinion. After reading a little, Nina revealed how impressed she was with the strength of the group, with those who were willing to sacrifice themselves for the public. That night, the police finally revealed the identity of the girl who drowned in the lake. It turned out to be Lotta. She joined Hilma's group because Martin invited her. When the news spread, Martin recalled the day when Lotta was ready to sacrifice herself. Lotta was not afraid at all. Instead, she was proud to show her sacrifice for the common good. Like the other members, Hilma had successfully brainwashed Lotta. Hilma asked Martin to take her to the lake because she was the one who recruited Lotta. Martin's task was not yet complete. With Mazzy joining, he also had to monitor Mazzy so that she would be ready like Lotta. Day by day, he observed her and became increasingly obsessed with protecting Mazzy. He saw Mazzy partying with Larissa at a nightclub. A young man tried to bother Mazzy, but she managed to avoid him. Nevertheless, Martin still finished off the young man. Early in the morning, Martin found Mazzy unconscious in a random building because she was drunk. Martin then took her to the community center, where Mazzy was forced to be doused with water until she woke up and was taken to the basement to get the alcohol out of her system. Mazzy was given a very unpleasant drink that made her stomach hurt. Mazzy screamed, begging Hilma to tell Ben, but Hilma insisted that the community was her family now. Meanwhile, Ben received news that Mazzy was missing. He rushed to Max's house while Elsa and Nina called Mazzy's friends one by one. Elsa couldn't help much because she didn't know who Mazzy had gone out with after stopping by her house the night before. Ben felt stuck after contacting more than half of Mazzy's contacts, but no one knew anything. Shortly thereafter, Ben saw a photo of Mazzy's tablet wallpaper with Martin. Ben had never known who Mazzy's male friend was. He asked Sophie if she knew the young man. Hearing Ben's question, Nina suddenly panicked, then announced that she had found a new clue just to divert their attention. Immediately, Ben took Nina to the crime scene. After the two of them left, Elsa showed a message from Mazzy containing a link to Hilma's sermon video. Not understanding the meaning of the video, Elsa immediately showed it to Sophie. On the other hand, at that time, Mazzy was in great pain. She rebelled and tried to escape from the basement. However, Hilma was guarding her closely. Seeing Mazzy's persistence, Hilma ordered her henchmen to drug Mazzy. After that, Hilma expressed her disappointment to Martin, whom she considered to have failed to fully recruit Mazzy as a member of their group. In addition, Martin had not covered up Lotta's death properly, so the news spread on television. Hilma felt that their group was in danger. She was forced to take emergency measures to maintain the community's good image. If Hilma failed, she would not hesitate to kill Martin. Martin just hung his head limply as he listened to Hilma. Hilma then told Martin to take Mazzy to the lake and wait for further instructions. Although he wanted to rebel, Martin felt he had no choice but to obey. Meanwhile, on the way to the fictitious crime scene, Nina's intention in approaching Ben was revealed. Nina was a member of Hilma's group, and now she wanted to recruit Ben. She had been monitoring Ben on the internet after reading one of his books. Nina thought Ben had views that were compatible with Hilma's community. In addition, he was an influential figure and had many connections. Hilma promised her a higher position in the group if she successfully recruited Ben. As one of the oldest members, Nina was naturally thrilled to receive the offer. However, she had to approach Ben quickly before the offer was given to someone else. Nina then used Martin to approach Mazzy from the start of their meeting on the train. Nina and Hilma themselves had been involved in the community since they were young. In fact, Nina's parents were one of the founders of the group. A few minutes later, Nina and Ben arrived at Hilma's group meeting place. Hilma and the members were already gathered, waiting for Ben, while Ben, who knew nothing about it, apologized for interrupting their event. He showed them Mazzy's photo and asked if anyone had seen her there. Without further ado, Hilma praised Ben's hypothesis in one of his books. Moreover, Ben's writing on collective consciousness was very inspiring and deserved to be disseminated. Ben was very confused about what Hilma meant. He just wanted to find Mazzy. Nina then stepped forward to tell Ben that Mazzy was safe with them. Hilma added that her community needed forward-thinking people like Ben to lead their group to the global stage. Of course, Ben flatly refused the persuasion. To convince Ben, Hilma said that she knew Ben was having difficulty repairing his relationship with Mazzy. Hilma was confident that with her group, Ben would learn to repair their relationship. Ben didn't want to hear Hilma's nonsense. He tried to open the doors around him while calling Mazzy. Meanwhile, Nina also tried to persuade Ben not to worry about Mazzy. Nina boasted that Mazzy was happy with them and was learning a sense of belonging that she would need to repair her relationship with Ben. That was why Ben had to stay with them. Now Nina accuses Ben of still denying his guilt for failing to protect Mazzy. Still, Ben is not swayed by Hilma's group's sweet promises. Ben is actually disgusted by Nina's words, which he believes are not her own thoughts, but Hilma's. Ben knows they are using Mazzy to threaten him. However, he threatens to report them to the police. Before Ben could go any further, Hilma warned him that if he dared to do anything, she would be forced to hasten Mazzy's sacrifice ritual at the lake. Hearing this decision, Nina panicked. She was certain that Ben would not want to join without Mazzy. That was why Ben had to join so that Mazzy could stay alive. Of course, Ben was not willing to lose Mazzy. After hearing Hilma's words, Ben noticed a similarity with the Hermit Girl, one of the respondents for his new book, and then connected it to the location where Lotta's body was found. Ben immediately understood that the lake was what Hilma was referring to. After failing to recruit Ben, Hilma punished Nina. Nina did not argue. She felt she deserved the punishment. As in the previous mass suicide case, Hilma prepared all the members to sacrifice themselves in the fire. However, Hilma herself did not participate in the ritual. After the fire broke out, she ran away. Elsewhere, Ben arrived just in time when Mazzy, who was still unstable, hallucinated seeing Lotta asking for his help from the middle of the lake. As if hypnotized, Mazzy swam and drowned herself with Lotta's shadow. Fortunately, Ben saw it. He did not repeat his mistake. He pulled Mazzy ashore before it was too late.